Before we go on, I insist that we take a moment to appreciate the magic that is this shirt. Please pay attention to the amazing transformation. Ta-da! Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I was pre-filming a bunch of videos for you and this is the second in a row, and I would like to share this video of mine. I'm going to talk about the challenge that I set for myself, the reading challenge for 2018, and more specifically it is the A to Z challenge that I'm doing as part of the fantasy book club group on Goodreads. So let's get into it. So ever since I was little, I dreamed of having my own book club. Unfortunately, it seemed kind of unattainable in person. However, thanks to Goodreads, there are so many book clubs to choose from, and I finally found the one club that kind of matches my reading tastes the most, and this is the Fantasy Book Club, and it's open for all members, so I'm leaving a link down below if you'd like to check it out. And as one of the challenges that I wanted to set for myself in 2018, I have lowered my reading goal from 75, which was my 2017 reading goal that I reached, to 65, to kind of lower the burden and make myself more relaxed in terms of what I'm picking to read. So this time I decided to go for a different challenge and incorporate it in the A to Z alphabet challenge. So pretty much it's exactly what it says on the tin. It is, you're supposed to pick a book from the fantasy genre for every single letter of the alphabet, and you're picking a book by the surname of the author. So I'm going to share with you my reading list, and I'm going to talk a little bit of about the books that I actually know stuff about. And let's get started. My pick for the letter A was Katherine Arden with The Bear, the Nightingale, which is a fantasy release that was in 2017, and I had my eye on this book ever since Robin Hobb reviewed it, and I really respect Robin Hobb as an author, and I believe that her taste in books is pretty cool. So I put it on my TBR, and I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, so I plan to read it very soon. This is a fantasy release that is set in Russia in the winter time, and I believe it's going to be absolutely a magical experience because I am from Russia, and I hope that it lives up to my expectations. I hope that it translates into the beautiful Russian winter fairy tales that I'm so familiar with, and I think that it might because the reviews are very favorable. For the letter B, I'm planning to read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and if you have been around, you probably know that this book is very trending right now. It's a new release, it's a fae story, and it's filled with a lot of cruelty, I believe, and a lot of scheming and machinations, and it's a court story, and I believe I'm kind of addicted to fae stories ever since Sarah J. Maas. And even though I've stepped away from the Sarah J. Maas world of fae, I do want to read something quality-like, and I believe that The Cruel Prince might be it, so I'm very looking forward to that book. It's one of my most anticipated, highly anticipated reads of the new year. For the letter G, I picked Changeless by Gail Carriger, and she is an author that I read quite a while ago, and it was with the book Solace that I started this journey. It's her adult series. She's also the writer of the Etiquette and Espionage series, I think, with The Finishing School. But this is more of a YA and this is more of an adult series, and it kind of has this little seamy element that I really enjoyed. It's supernatural adult that was really fun. It's set in Victorian England, if I'm not mistaken, and it was just genuinely such an adorable book with werewolves and vampires, and it's just a really cool story that I want to get back into, so I'm taking this as my cue. For the letter D, I have Redux by A.L. Davroe, and it's a sequel to the story of Nexus, the first book. It's a dystopian YA that I really enjoyed. The story focuses on a girl called Elani who is 16 years old as the story starts, and she is living in a world of aristocrats that are living in a city covered by a dome called an Evanescence. And in their world there is not really an abundance of anything, everything is very conserved, and the life of luxury is all about getting yourself altered and modified as your appearance so that you attain these crazy standards and ideals. And Alani is not allowed to do that because she's still young and her father won't let her. But then an accident happens and she is basically very much worse off than how she started, and the only thing that's saving her is this reality game that is called Nexus, and it's absolutely fantastic and I really recommend it. And this book is going to be amazing and I'm really looking forward to it, so I would really like to read it. It's been on my shelf for like half a year but I haven't picked it up, I don't know why, so this is the moment of making it happen. For the letter E, I'm going with Stephen Erickson's Gardens of the Moon. Oh boy, this book. I'm on page 95 and this book is such a heavy chunk. I know I went into it prepared. My boyfriend really loves the series and I know they're really huge and really epic and with kind of these gods standing off and the humans and turmoil and politics and God knows what. But so far I've read 95 pages and I'm still like, there's so much terminology that's not explained. I mean, the learning curve with this book is so freaking high, and I know that this is not even the best book in the series, so you're kind of starting off at the middle or low point so that you can know what's happening in the rest of the series. And this is like one of these epic series that really jumps in time and years pass in between chapters and stuff. So I'm really coming to grips with it. I intend to finish it. I don't know whether I'm gonna pick up the next book after that, but my boyfriend wants me to love this one, and if it's really good fantasy, I hope I learn to appreciate it as much as he does, because he wants to discuss stuff. So in my quest for truth or books in this year, I'm also trying to pick up some new series that I haven't heard of, but those have been on my shelf for quite a while. And so the book that I'm picking up for the letter F is by Ken Follett and it's called The Pillars of the Earth. And it's about a 12th century monk who is tasked with building a huge Gothic cathedral, and I don't know much more than that, but I'm hoping it's a good read. It has very high ratings on Goodreads. Basically, my safe bet is when you pick something up on Goodreads that has a rating of 4 and above, you're in for a good time, so I'm trying to kind of follow that rule for myself, so this is what I'm into. For the letter G, I picked a book by Terry Goodkind and I finished Death's Mistress already. This is a new spin-off series from his main fantasy series that started with The Sword of Truth. And I've been into Terry Goodkind for a very long time, for the whole long haul of the story of Richard and Kaelin. And this book was such a big letdown, although the Almond Machine series were also kind of bad, but this just hit a new low for me. So I'm stopping with Goodkind now, but I wanted to complete this book because I couldn't have finished it for the whole of 2017. I picked it up and left it off in the middle. I'm very happy I finished it. I can finally cross it off the list and move on to higher and better things. For the letter H, I picked a book by Alwyn Hamilton, and this is The Hero at the Fall, and as I told in my previous video, it is a trilogy, a concluding novel from the Rebel of the Sands trilogy by Alwyn Hamilton. And it is about a sharpshooting girl who lives in the desert, but it's kind of like a bit of a Western themed story about power and destiny and your blood and magic, and it's very cool and I would like to finish it off, so I just put it on the list so that I know that I have to do it. The letter I was a huge struggle. It's really hard to find an author that you want to read who starts with the letter I, and especially in fantasy, which is why I'm going with a historical fiction book. And the book is called Genghis, Birth of an Empire by Con Iggulden. And this is a historical fiction book about the story of Genghis Khan. And I find it completely fascinating. The same author has also written about Rome, but I feel like I know a bit more about Rome than about Genghis Khan, which is why I think it's going to be such a fascinating journey. I really hope I love it. The reviews are really good, so I hope the book will give me an easy time of it. For the letter J, I picked up another recommendation of my boyfriend's, which is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. I know that it's supposed to be a classic start of a fantasy series quite a while back, and we have it on our shelf, so I figured why not. I'll give it a go. Maybe I like this one. I like classic fantasy, so I wanted to see what this book has to offer. trailer and we'll move on after that. Next on for the letter K is Elise Kova's The Alchemists of Loom. I heard a lot of good things about it. I still want to read other books by Elise Kova, such as The Air Awakens and others, but I haven't gotten around to it yet, so I want to read at least one book of Elise's in the new year. Next on is Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence, which is a sequel to Red Sister, which is a kick-ass book about a girl who is trained to become a murderer and an assassin in a convent full of nuns. And it's a really cool high fantasy that I would really love to enjoy, so I'm putting the sequel on my list so that I have to read it when it premieres. For the letter M, I put Un-Cinder by Marissa Meyer because I haven't read the Lunar Chronicles series and I really want to. I've been putting it off because I have my eye on this beautiful hardback set of books, but it's so hefty to buy all of them at once. It's like 65 euros. So I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, but I really want to get started because I know these books are gonna give me a great time. So I really wanna at least start with the series this year. For the letter N, I picked a book by Naomi Novik and it's called Spinning Silver. Naomi Novik is the author of Uprooted, which is one of my all-time favorite fantasy books. And I know that her new book, Spinning Silver, which comes out in 2018, is centered around the tale of Rumpelstiltskin, and I find everything that is themed around the mythology and the fairy tale world so exciting and interesting, and I know she's going to make an amazing spin of the story, and I just cannot wait for another Naomi Novik book. I also wanted to start the Demarayer series by Naomi Novik, but I know it's a bigger commitment, so I'm putting it off for now. I also had a bit of a trouble with the letter O until I remembered I have a book on my shelf that's called Star of the Sea by Joseph O'Connor. I picked it up in a secondhand bookstore, and it's supposed to be a marine time saga spanning hundreds of years, talking about people who have made journeys at sea. And yeah, I know that it spans the 18th century and then the 19th century and generations and whatnot, and I thought it was a good chance to get the book read, because otherwise, you know, there are always things that take precedence, but if I put it on the list, then I have to do it, and I'm looking forward to actually reading this one. For the letter P, I picked a book by A.The Palmer, Seven Surrenders, which came out last year, but I didn't read it. It's the second book in the To Like the Lightning series of Terra Ignota. It's a sci-fi book, very complicated, very unusual writing style, but I enjoyed it immensely because there are so many plot twists and turns that you just don't see coming because the picture is so much bigger than what you can see. And I have the first book, but I need to read on the second and the third because I got an arc for the third on NetGalley, so I really have to make my way through. And that means that I'm due for a reread because this is going to be so much better on second reading. This is one of those books that are only benefiting from you reading them for the second time because you have so much more context. So I'm looking forward to that. For the letter Q, I picked Mistress of Rome by Kate Quinn, and this is supposed to be a fictional romance, historical fiction about a girl living in Rome and having a sort of a forbidden affair. I'm not sure if he was a gladiator or something, but something along the lines. And I thought a bit of like romance reading would really spice up this list, so I went along with that. For R, I picked The Dark Prophecy by Rick Riordan, which is the second book in the Trials of Apollo series. I've just finished rereading the Trials of Apollo's first book again, and I don't have the second one in my possession yet, but I am desperate for it, which is why I put it on the list, so that I can make it happen. For the letter S, I picked up Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I didn't have it yet in my library, I still have to order it. I'm so looking forward to starting it because I know it's going to be gut-wrenching, and V. Schwab is the best at crafting impeccable characters that you fall in love with despite their flaws. Ever since Holland, I'm just Holland of the Shades of Magic series. I'm just looking forward to Vicious so very much. For the letter T, I picked up Laini Taylor's Days of Blood and Starlight, which was part of a series that she had about Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and I have the trilogy. I've already finished it, so that's another book that I crossed off the list. I definitely recommend it to everybody who wants to try Laini Taylor's writing. It's an angel kind of story, angel versus demon story, but it's very non-standard, so it's more like a classical fantasy than anything else, and I really enjoyed it. There were things that could have gone better, so it was like a 4-star read for me, not 5, but she's definitely an author that I always want to try books of, so I recommend it very much. Letter U was a huge freaking problem. So the only book that I found after looking pretty thoroughly on Goodreads was by Sigrid Undset, and it's called Kristin Lavrangsdatter. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right in any way. Probably somebody from the north should correct me should I butcher this name, as I probably did. And I know that it's I think it's, I want to say Norwegian story, but I'm so afraid to get it wrong. Wait, I need to check this. Yeah, so this book is set in 14th century Norway, and Sigrid is telling the story of a passionate, headstrong woman who is very badass. She is standing up for herself. It's filled with political and religious undercurrents, and it's all about the span of her life and her saga and her family. And I feel like I've never read anything about Norway, especially the Middle Ages, which are like my favorite time to read about, so I cannot wait to pick that one up. For the letter V, I picked up Deathless by Katherine M. Valente. I haven't gotten the book yet, but it looks fantastic because it's centered about a myth of Russian literature about Kощей Бессмертный, which means Kощей the Immortal, and he is a big villainous figure in our folk fairy tale, and this is kind of a modern spin on it. And to be honest, I'm quite fascinated with Kощей. Personally, I'm working on a novel that kind of features him, and I know that it will be probably years until I finished it, and the first draft is still in the works, but I would like to see what this story is all about in Katherine M. Valente's outlook, especially since a review called her an honorary Russian, so I would really like to see how she handled the whole story. For W, I got a book that's called The Queen's Poisoner by Jeff Wheeler, and it's a new series that I haven't picked up yet. It's also fantasy. I believe it's about a foreign prince who is held in captivity as sort of a, you know, exchange to guarantee the other country's obedience, and he is working as a poison tester, and I think it's as far as I can go regarding the summary, but it sounded really cool, so I wanted to try and pick it up. I've had the worst time picking up a book for the letter X, because oh my god, how many fantasy authors do you know that have books written by the name X? And I went Chinese, obviously, because where else are you going to find a surname that starts like that? I mean, and I was thinking to pick up something out of the science fiction genres, because I remember people that were kind of nominated for Hugo and Nebula awards with weird surnames, but in the end I couldn't find anything else but another fiction novel, so I picked up The Dream of the Red Chamber by Xiaoqing. I don't know how to pronounce that either, so please forgive me that I butchered it, and please educate me on how to pronounce it correctly. And this book is a classic of the Chinese literature, which is good because I've never read Chinese literature either, and I'm very captivated. And this is supposed to be a classic set in the 18th century, which is one of my favorite time periods, like on the whole, and I think I'm gonna be reading this one in Russian translation and not English, because I'm all for reading books on the original language, but I do not understand Chinese, and I feel like I'm gonna be losing more if I read a Chinese translated book in English than if I read the Chinese translated into Russian that I have so much more stronger grip on. Okay, 2 books to go. For the letter Y, I've been thinking a while, and then I came up with Lying on the Couch by Irving Yalom. Yalom is a very well-known psychotherapist that I absolutely admire. He is one of my favorites since university and even pre-university times, and this is one of his fiction books. He writes amazing fiction, and it's been so long since I've read one of these books that I'm really looking forward to reading this one. And I recommend Yalom for everyone who loves fiction and beautiful and witty, and also kind of is into the whole idea of psychology, because these books are terrific. And I'm finishing the list off with the letter Z, and I'm going to read A Lonesome Night in October by Roger Zelazny. And this is a really cool book. It's kind of a mystery that I plan to read around Halloween, because it's all about these different characters from different books coming onto this one murderesque scene in A Lonesome Night in October. It features all the best detectives and all different characters from different books. So I feel like it's going to be a really cool kaleidoscope, so I'm totally looking forward to that. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this was it for my big A to Z challenge. If you'd like to join, please feel free to tell me what your list is down below. You can also do this challenge like not being bound by the fantasy genre and just go with other genres, or on the whole you can make your lists and tell me about them more. If you're doing any challenges related to books this year, please let me know. I would love to discuss. And if you can recommend to me any of these books that I mentioned so that I put them higher on my to-read list, I would totally appreciate it. So thank you very much. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!